Hi there, it's Lone Wolf. What a week. Sometimes DJ Illusion says to me, I don't know how you have the patience. Surely sometimes you feel like giving up. And sometimes I do. This was a week. This was. So, our assets are all stored in object storage. And I noticed that our object storage was getting a bit fuller than normal. So I thought I'd see if there was a way of stopping that. Basically, we have versioning on. So basically, we store 2 or 3 versions of the file. If a file gets overwritten or deleted, we store 2 or 3 versions. So I thought I'd do something to reduce the versions down to 2, and I found this little command here called mcilm rule, where I could set rules, and I thought this was going to mean that it basically mean mcilm rule add was what I was running. What it would do is expire. And I thought this was to do with versioning, but it wasn't. It was to do with all the files on the read, and so on the asset store. So what effectively happened is that after about an hour, the object storage started deleting files that were over a certain age, which meant that, of course, that was the assets. So it was all a bit of a huge nightmare. However, I managed to catch it before it got very far, and I managed to restore a backup. Now that means that there are some objects that obviously weren't on the backup. I also built a thing where I could, I found that one of the issues was that I have a lot of stuff in OR files, because obviously the grid backs up every night. But even when I loaded the OR files, the missing assets didn't come back, because the assets are actually in the database, even though they're not actually on the disk. So the actual physical asset files are not on the disk. So what I did was I built another grid. I'll just get this over there. I think it's that. No, not back up. Sandboxes. So I actually built another grid. Now this is a special grid, and I'll show you why. So let's just pop over there for a second. So this is not Wolf Territories grid. This is the test grid, and the test grid has a different feature, because if we go over here, when it comes up, so anything resed here, okay, will actually populate the missing files on the server. Now what that means is that if you've got something that you picked up from Aviworlds or wherever, and you can't find it in your inventory now, what you can do is to come here with a non-Wolf Territories grid avatar, bringing said item, and just res it here. And what will happen is that in the background, let's see, I'll just log into it. In the background, so somewhere here, screen 10927, I'm just showing you this grid. So here, okay, so basically what's happening here is it's actually copying the objects into the server. Now sometimes you get this input output error. That's just fine. That's where there is something else writing to that file. So basically that will keep it up. So if I now if I res something, there's no point doing it with this avatar, but I'll do it anyway. But a walnut grandfather clock, how lovely. Don't know if this is going to res because this is on a different grid. Oh no, it did. Okay, there's a lovely walnut grandfather clock, and we'll see it. Probably it won't write it because that's already on the server at the other end. But what this basically allows us to do is, if you've got missing assets and you know where you can find them on OpenSim, bring your avatar over here to testgrid.wolfterritories.org/sandbox and res it, and it'll basically put the avatar, the object, back in. Have spoken to the OpenSim NGC guys who are working on this stuff to ask if it would be possible to put a function in when you upload an OR that says force overwrite, which will force the assets to be reloaded onto the server. And I am looking at a bit of code to see whether I can do it. I could build something in PHP or something that would actually allow me to re-upload the assets in a different way. It's all been a bit of a pain. This has been one of those weeks. Hopefully, I mean, now what I've done now is pretty simple. So I've got, as you know, I've got 2 object storage servers. So this one is being mirrored, and you can see we've got 500 gig of assets at the moment, 1.3 million by this one. sorry, OS. This one's being mirrored by this one. If I can get into it. So this is being mirrored onto here. There we go. So this is an exact copy on a different server of that one. You can see it's exactly the same. And then what's happening in Proxmox is that, in fact, I have a backup running now. It gets backed up every day when it eventually comes up with the data. So it's actually backing up running now. Now the beauty of this is that this backup does freeze the object storage, and it does upset the grid a bit when that happens. But because this is a mirrored server, it doesn't matter, because this bit can go offline because the main server is online. So that basically means that we so here you go, starting first sync, and this is built in a container as well, so it's less resource hungry and seems to be running absolutely perfectly fine. So basically we've got one object, the main object storage server for the assets is also being mirrored onto another object server, which is being backed up here into the Proxmox backup. What a job. What a job. So anyway, we'll see how we get on, and hopefully in the next, things will settle down and we'll all get back to being happy wolves again, because that's what we really want. So thanks very much. Hope that's helpful. Yeah. Signing off somewhere.